Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If we could take your seats, please, and we'll get session one underway. We're just waiting on a few more. I also have some parking vouchers, so if anyone is parked downstairs, there's a flat rate of $20. Come and see me and I can give you a parking voucher as well. Is the Commissioner around? Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, one of our homegrown Brisbane young entrepreneurs. Taj Pabari is a dynamic social entrepreneur and co-founder of the ASE Group. Taj has been a trailblazer in youth entrepreneurship and digital literacy, earning accolades such as Australian Young Innovator of the Year and Queensland Young Australian of the Year. Under his leadership, the ASE Group has empowered over 240,000 Australians through life skills and entrepreneurship programs. Taj is also a seasoned speaker, having delivered TEDx talks and featured on major media platforms. Welcome, Taj.
Thanks, Ross. Well, g'day everyone. How are we? Oh, come on. We can have a bit more energy than that. How are we, everyone? Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for having me here today, Dominique, and your lovely team. Can we give them a big round of applause? What a fantastic morning that was. Well, today I'm going to be talking to you about my favourite topic, and as the slide suggests, that's young people. I've got a particular interest in young people. I'm going to be talking a little bit about me and I guess what we can do as supporters of small and micro business to help create a generation of young people that thrive, not just survive in this 21st century innovation economy. So here's a thought. The average 4-year-old asks 100 questions per day. Most kindergarten students think of themselves as artists. What changes? Well, together as young people, when we well and truly get stuck, or may I even say trapped in our current education system, we come to understand that it's more important to have the right answer than to ask a creative and unique question. We begin to believe that we're at school to merely absorb information rather than to create and to apply it. The result? Well, the unfortunate result is the fact that we have young people just like me graduating with certificates, which in many cases are a mere indication of seat time served. So, my career started here. This is me on my first day of preschool, prep class for MC. My mum took a picture, took this photo, because one day she thought you're going to want it, and I'm so glad she did, because this was literally 20 minutes after my first day began. I went to a great school just outside Brisbane in Logan. Went to school at John Paul College in Daisy Hill. They were a great school, but unfortunately, during primary school, I was having none of it. I actually hated school, to be honest, for that first 7 years. I couldn't engage, I was highly disruptive, and I was constantly causing trouble for everyone around me. This morning, when the minister's lights turned off, I accidentally turned his lights off. So that was just an example of what was happening from prep to grade 6. Not turning ministers' lights off, but lots of other things that were highly disruptive in a traditional classroom. As you can see, I come from an Indian background. Both my parents, dad's from East Africa in Kenya. He went to school. His parents forced him to drop out of school. He couldn't afford to go do further education, and he started working when he was really quite young. Mum, on the other hand, was brought up in England. She went through a very, very traditional pathway. Went to school, was pushed to do very well in school, went to university, stayed in uni for like forever, then did an internship and stayed in employment for the rest of her life. And I guess I had two parents that came from very, very different backgrounds to life. One, no formal education, straight into work. The other one loved formal education and I guess wanted that for me too. My grandparents were also very traditional, and I guess the idea of having a doctor or a lawyer was highly appealing to them. C grades don't get you to law school or mid school, and I actually couldn't think of anything worse than wearing a suit. I don't think I have a tie anymore, actually, but I couldn't think of anything worse than wearing a suit or operating on the insides of people. And I was just keen and curious about the wonders of technology. That's all I wanted to do. And when people used to ask me, hey Taj, what do you want to do when you grow up? I used to say technology. I didn't know what specific area. All I knew was that the world of electronics and tech made me excited. So at the age of, here's my report cards. I actually found this recently. My parents had tucked all of these lovely report cards away. Apparently I studied Japanese. I wasn't listening. Well, that was obvious. And I printed out these, I must have printed out these Chinese characters and replaced it with the hiragana chart. And the teacher actually decided to write home about that. And that was grade 4. And I guess throughout the entire primary school journey, as you can see, I was somewhat disruptive. 3 suspensions later, I was on probation in grade 6. Now, no kid gets onto probation in grade 6, not with police or anything, just like all the unproductive habits. So pencil fighting, hiragana charts, whatever. But ended up on probation at grade 6, but I still had this really deep passion for technology. So at the age of 14, I thought, all right, well, C and D grades are not working for me. I am not enjoying being in the classroom with 25 people. I realized that I couldn't focus. I was able to focus quite okay when I was outside of the classroom, but inside the classroom, when there were 25 other people around me, I couldn't focus. The dots just weren't connecting. So I started an organization, a business called 56, which was all about teaching kids about digital literacy. This was when Malcolm Turnbull was communications minister, Barack Obama was the US president, and together they kept talking about coding and tech skills are the new language. And if your kid doesn't learn how to code, they will be left behind. So we jumped on that bandwagon and said, all right, well, instead of teaching kids about code, let's teach them about the actual electronics behind the systems that we create. Essentially, 56 was a do-it-yourself tablet kit for kids by kids. They could plug in the pieces, they plug in the motherboard, they plug in the flex cables, the RAM, the CPU, and at the end of it, they learn about the insides of the tech, and it powers on just like a normal Android tablet. This is still like a highly disruptive school kid, but 2 years later, national media loved the idea. They started on like Sunrise one morning before school, and 2 years later, we'd sold like a good 10,000 units of this device. Now, the one device you're seeing in every picture was the actual one device that existed. We had a supply chain that was me, which was like child labor. I was 14, but that was the extent of our supply chain. We had no manufacturing facility. We had, I was the manufacturing facility. And obviously, when you have 10,000 orders and you're dealing with small parts, electrical safety, child safety, that's not a sufficient supply chain. So over 2 years, we decided, let's actually try to make this thing happen. So we hired a couple of industrial designers, electrical engineers to try to make a safe do-it-yourself tablet kit for kids. I remember when we did a 60 Minutes piece with Liz Hayes. She came to my house and she was like, oh, this piece is going to go like national. And I was like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's sell a couple of devices. Because in China, if you want to manufacture tech, they don't just want 10,000 pieces. They're looking for like a minimum order quantity of like 100,000. We had $3.5 million of pre-orders. I was 14. We didn't have a company. It was going directly to my dad's personal bank account. So like they'd order on our website. Some people would have put like 100% deposits. Some people would have done 10%. It would go, they'd pay by Stripe. And then like the bank payout would happen like 2-3 days later, and it would just go to dad's account. And at its peak, it reached about $3.5 million, which was just wild. So I was ready to drop out of school. I was like, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. I am like really not enjoying being in the classroom. I've got this amazing life outside of the classroom. I'm done. I'm done. Essentially, mum and dad said no, which was actually a really good thing looking back. And because after 2 years, we realized that we can't actually produce this thing. These small parts were, like if a kid ate a Lego piece, or like they're quite big anyway, but if a kid ate a Lego piece, they're not going to die. if a kid ate a battery, then like there's no way they're not going to die. Like that kid's gone. And it sounds quite sad, but well, it is sad. It's really sad. But we wanted to get this device out in public, and as a result of the risk of kids dying, we weren't able to do so. So after 2 years of making no real visible progress, we incorporated along that journey. We had a business bank account, which was great. And 2 years later, we decided, let's raise some money. And we had some great investors that jumped on board to refund every order. So we refunded like 10,000 orders. So everyone got their money back. And I guess that was a crisis point. We were like, what on earth are we going to do? This is all we were known for, teaching kids about digital literacy. And we probably taught like 4 kids about digital literacy with the 4 safe devices we actually had. And thought, let's do something interesting. And I guess we started the ASE group, which was teaching kids at the time about life skills education, entrepreneurship, and employment programs. Teaching young people about all the life skills we wish we were taught in school, but didn't. So financial literacy, communication skills, creativity, all these amazing things that I guess we all developed outside of the classroom. We were made in Logan. We started in Logan. 2 of our co-founders, myself included, were based there, and now we're super proud to be a Moreton Bay-based business in Strathpine as well. So I saw this quote, and we show this to a lot of our business owners now too. I'm sure everyone's seen it at one place or another. I remember the happy dance I used to do when I had my first customer. I'm sure, does anyone experience this feeling when you start your business? Hands up very quickly. Lovely. That happy dance is exciting, and I guess I get a real kick out of seeing my participants, my young people or adult participants now also witnessing their happy dance when they make that first sale. It's exciting. That first sale is the most wonderful thing. That 10th sale is the most wonderful thing, and I guess hopefully that excitement never gets lost from those business owners. Before I go any further, I thought we'd play a quick 50 million game. Has anyone played this before? No hands, lovely. Well, that's good. I'm going to put a piece of technology on the board, and you're going to tell me how long it takes to reach 50 million users. So first one is the telephone. How long did it take the telephone to reach 50 million users? Scream it out. Go. So quiet. Come on. 20 years. Wow, that's ambitious. 50 years. It took the telephone 50 years to reach 50 million users. Second one is the TV. How long did the TV take to reach 50 million users, folks? 40 years, 10, super close, 22, well done. Facebook. How long did it take Facebook to reach 50 million users? We're getting closer, 3 years. It took Facebook just 3 years to reach 50 million users. 50 million, that's like double of our population. That's pretty insane. Angry Birds. 6 months. Any others? All right, 35 days, a lot closer. Now, the last one is the only one people have actually died participating in. Can anyone tell, wow, death again. Can anyone tell me what the last one might be? Pokemon Go, lovely. It took Pokemon Go just 19 days to reach 50 million users, right? That's insane. I guess right now in 2025, we are quite literally in the very center of a raging tornado of change that's being fueled by things like digitization, mobilization, augmentation, and automation. We tell our young people that if they study hard, they'll get a good job. But how can we? The innovation economy is changing so quickly. It took ChatGPT, right? The most recent model, it took them 4 days, GPT-4, to reach 50 million users. So the rate of change is obviously increasing at this really rapid pace, and we've got to prepare our young people for that workforce of the future. So how do we prepare young people? How do we support young people to actually start local and stay local when it comes to business? The first one is get them in the game. Too often, we talk about grants as the solution to young people. The commissioner yesterday was talking about the fact that, and the mayor was talking about that we don't just want to throw money at small businesses. They don't want grants. What they want is business, right? There's a little quote there. A grant says, here's money to try. Procurement says, here's money to deliver. And I guess what young people, actually what every business owner needs, is an opportunity to actually get business with cool partners, and councils, government are examples of those very cool partners. A $3K contract, I remember my first $3,000 contract with a local government. I was pumped. It was exciting. Seeing that cool purchase order on a really fancy looking letterhead, that's worth so much more than a $3,000 grant. And we've seen it. It builds the confidence across business owners right across the place, whether it be for more government funding or expanding into corporate organizations as well. So how do we do that? We've seen these emerging supply panels. We do this ourselves as an organization. We're still a very small business. We've got like 30 people. We work with around 200,000 people across the country. We're still relatively small. And if we can do this as an organization by putting together an emerging suppliers panel, there's probably no excuse for others not to as well, especially government, where you work to find these incredible small and micro businesses that could produce elements of business to council or any department, etc., and actually give them a go. If you're ordering new t-shirts, don't go through the formal process of buying from a medium or large business. Find that new supplier that's based in your area. That $3,000 contract can change the trajectory of that business. The second one are these demo days. Now, we've got Paul Martin in the room right now who looks after economic development at Moreton Bay with us today. Moreton Bay literally does these incredible demo days where we were part of one ourselves a couple of years ago, where it's an expo style format at the start and then a pitch. They put people from government who buy products or buy services in the room. They put a handful of local businesses in the room too to present their ideas. They put people who want to buy with emerging business owners, not people who've been seen, not people who have a big profile, people who've just got a great product or service to sell. And they put them in front of people who want to buy. It's such a simple, easy concept. This probably doesn't cost a huge amount of money to put together, but it makes a difference because it connects the dots for people who might not have that huge network already. The second one is growing the next wave. Young people can't be what they can't see. How do we actually create a pipeline of incredible talent around Queensland? We can't just expect the next small or micro business to pop up in our local area. Everyone sort of says, well, isn't this school's job to prepare young people for the real world? And yeah, I guess that's a fair point. But school now has become all about preparation for university and higher education. So if we want to actually get more young people to start businesses, start small and micro businesses, we've got to do something ourselves. And I think this is why we see this being such a hugely important element in one's economic development plan, because I guess if we don't, they're just going to go down a traditional pathway. And there's nothing wrong with the traditional pathway. And maybe we want a good group of people going down a traditional pathway. But for many, we want to see more young people start micro businesses. Again, yesterday, there were lots of conversations around improving and getting more young people in business. And the only way to do that is starting early. We start our young people at 6 years old, getting them to pitch their own business idea or social change idea in prep. And by starting early, can you imagine what those young people are going to do when they grow up? Some of those stats around the rate of failure in business generally talk about high growth businesses, but it's very realistic for a young person to replace their income through a small or micro business. Making $60,000, $70,000 from their own business is highly practical. It's not all that crazy for them to actually do that by supplying one service, one product to a small market. Skip past that, that's an interesting slide. I saw this quote from the US Commissioner of Patents. It said, everything that can be invented has been invented. That was in 1899. Can you imagine if the world just stopped, right? Someone with such a huge position of leadership and power said humans have literally done it all in 1899. We know that's not true. Can you imagine if Charles, the patent genius, actually, if people actually took that for granted? Because 2 years later, we had the teddy bear, 8 years later, talking motion picture, and 2 years after that, the fortune cookie. The rate of change right now is so significant, and we really do need to create environments where young people can thrive in that ever-changing workforce of the future. And the third one is putting someone on their side. I know a lot of councils have got this, but systems, like if you want to start a food truck business, we've got lots of participants that think, oh, I'm going to start a food truck business, and that's great as their side hustle. But the process to actually doing that is so damn hard, right? And as it should be, because we don't want like sickness or whatnot. They're not built for normal people. Small business owners just want to get on with it, right? And having people who can ultimately just connect the dots. So when someone goes to a small business support officer, they're there not to do the work, but ultimately help them get that business up and running as quickly as possible. That's not money that they need. What they need is just support connecting the dots. And we've just seen having someone on a young person's side for the first 6 months of their business journey can really be the difference between that success or failure of that business. As the quote suggests, one person self-employed is one less person unemployed. If we want to create more innovative businesses, yeah, the rate of failure can be quite high. But promoting micro business and small business can solve some of Australia's biggest issues, rather than just trying to support the next big Atlassian or safety culture. By supporting young people to start their own little enterprises, we could actually solve youth unemployment, which has traditionally had a three times the adult unemployment rate for the last decade. Micro business and small business could actually be the solution to that very major problem. So 3 things: get them in the game, grow the next wave, and put someone on their side. 3 things that I believe hopefully will support the next generation of young Queenslanders to start local and ultimately stay local too. Now, before I wrap up, this is a 90-year human life in months. Each row represents 3 years. I'm 25 years old right now, and this is all the time that I have left, if you last till 90. I have this around me all the time. It's on my desktop background as well. You're obviously here because you love what you do, and hopefully you do. But if you don't, this is a really interesting wake-up call. We don't have much time left on this planet, so you should be doing it and spending it with people you love and doing things you love as well. Small business is probably one of the hardest sports one will ever embark on, right? It's one of the hardest journeys people will go through. We don't have a lot of time left, so spend that time doing something we genuinely love and enjoy. Thanks, guys. Sure.
Thanks, Taj. That was great. We have time for a couple of questions. Is there any questions from the floor, please? Paul.
It's actually a plug for Taj. So Paul from Moreton Bay, thank you, Taj. I've worked on submarine cables, hotel investments, national sporting cities, but one thing I'm most proud of, Taj's program helped a young kid in Caboolture, 5 generations of unemployment in the family. That's 100 years of unemployment in that family. How is he going to get the advice, the guidance to apply for jobs, never mind start a business? And they helped him start a car detailing business, which is doing really, really well. So it's program, and I'm not saying this because he's based in Moreton Bay, but honestly, it's one of those programs sometimes, and the previous presenter talked about public value and how you spend your money. We did and because the state is responsible for education, the state is responsible for a whole bunch of things, and you go, screw it. If we don't, who is, and who's going to help that segment of the community? And the results from ASC in some of our most underprivileged areas, in all our areas, but some of those underprivileged areas has just been transformational for those kids. And you just see the empowerment. So just thank you.
Thanks,
and
Paul.
Congratulations.
Cheers, mate. Yeah. That kid that Paul's talking about, he's on Instagram. It's like prestige car detailing, if anyone wants to get a car detail. He actually goes to your house and does it. And this was such an amazing kid. Youth justice background as well. And he just started this crazy micro business and goes to people's houses and does car detailing for $400 a day. And I guess it's way more than he would have ever got from casual work in a restaurant or whatnot. So pretty
Wonderful investment. Thank you. Has there got anyone else with a question?
So quiet.
Come on, there's got to be one more.
I'd like to know the worlds that you envisage, like if you see the impact of the program that you're running, what do you foresee as the best impact achieved with what you do gets up and going across Queensland?
Yeah, well, Good question. I think in the media, there's so much doom and gloom about the gig economy. Like you type in gig economy and it's all negative and really sad about job security or job insecurity, that sort of thing. But we think it comes like young people. So we employ a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha. We've got lots of them who prefer to have like a portfolio of different jobs. So they would like to work 2 days with us. They'll do 2 days with someone else, and they'll work a day for themselves on the side. They love that. They genuinely want that. So it's not, I guess, we sort of see that as a great thing. Starting a side hustle, starting a micro business whilst being employed for someone else and might be contracting to someone else on the side too, we see that being a very realistic view of the future of work. Not in a negative way, but in a really positive way. People are able to channel their passions through 3 different roles at the same time, in the same place. And that's wonderful, because ultimately, as that previous slide had, if we don't have much time left, if you don't know what you're good at or what you want to do when you grow up, why not try 3 different things simultaneously rather than being locked into the same thing? And that is really hard for employers. Like, it's really hard to manage staff who only work a couple of days or only want to work a couple of days here and work somewhere else a few days as well. But that's what young people are screaming for right now. They want the flexibility. They want the capacity to test their skills in a different industry a few days a week. And I guess that's just what we're all going to have to get a lot more comfortable with as especially Gen Alpha comes through into the workforce.
Thanks, Taj. Thank you so much. Another round of applause for Taj and the ASE group.
Cheers,
Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.
Well done. We'll now move into the next session, Beyond the Roads, Rubbish, Rates and Rubbish. And I'd like to introduce Tony Rayner. Tony is the chair of the Remote Area Planning and Development Board, RAPID. He's the mayor of Longreach Council. Tony has been a dedicated advocate for regional development and community empowerment, with extensive experience in local government and regional planning under his leadership. RAPID has made significant strides in enhancing education, employment and economic opportunities across central West Queensland. Please welcome Tony.
Well, thanks very much, Ross, and what a great cross-section of speakers we've had this morning. Just incredible, the professional people that have turned up here today. And thank you to the organisers for the invitation. I've thoroughly enjoyed yesterday, hated last night. But the walk down, the walk back was therapeutic. But yeah, and it's great to see some of the RAPID people here today, some Barcaldine councillors and staff and Blackall as well. So yeah, just to introduce myself again, Tony Rayner, Mayor of Longreach and Chair of the Remote Area Planning and Development Board, or RAPID as it's known, and we cover 7 of the local government areas across central Western Queensland. It's a vast, resilient and deeply interconnected region. So today I want to speak to you about convergence, not as a buzzword but as a blueprint, because out in the west where I live and many others, in the vastness of central Western Queensland, progress happens when good people and good ideas converge across council boundaries, across sectors and across levels of government. And both Minister Steve Minikin and Alicia Mackay referenced that in their presentations this morning. It's about relationships and the interconnection. So just a bit more about RAPID, the Remote Area Planning and Development Board. It's a regional organisation of councils, so that means we're not a new layer of government but a collaboration. A practical alliance between 7 local governments in central Western Queensland: Barcaldine, Barcoo, Blackall Tambo, Boolyah, Diamantina, Longreach and Winton. So that footprint covers about 400,000 square kilometres. It's about the size of Germany, but it's got a combined population of less than 13,000 people. And what we lack in size, we make up for in unity. So RAPID exists to help our councils tackle the challenges that we can't solve alone. Economic development, workforce shortages, housing, infrastructure and long-term sustainability. And many of those issues I heard yesterday from every group that presented, so there's a lot of commonality across the state. So we pool our expertise, we co-invest in regional solutions and we advocate with a single voice. RAPID are fortunate that back in 2013, we put in for a program to deliver in Western Queensland. It was one of the CDP programs for those that are unemployed. That was a highly successful contract that we won, very successful in terms of outcomes, but also very successful in terms of financial dividends for the shareholders. One of the shareholders was Rapid, and with the money that we've invested, or that we gained, we were able to invest in some of these programs. So that's where some of our finance came from. So we pool that expertise, we co-invest in those solutions, and we advocate with a single voice. Because in the bush, collaboration isn't just efficient, it's essential. Without it, distance divides and opportunity slips through the cracks. Alongside Rapid, I'd also like to acknowledge the Western Queensland Alliance of Councils, commonly referred to as WAC. So that's the 20, and we do get whacked occasionally. That includes the 23 councils of South West, Central West and North West, and congratulations again to Ballon for their success in the awards this morning. So the Western Queensland Alliance of Council brings together those 22, or there are now 23 councils, from across the western half of the state, from the Gulf right down to the Channel Country. These are councils that, while diverse in geography and makeup, have that same common ground: small populations, large distances, but a fierce commitment to keeping their communities viable. So WAC was formed to strengthen our collective voice. When we advocate together on housing, water security, digital connectivity, we get noticed. But it's more than advocacy. WAC is a platform for shared planning, shared research and shared ambition. It's a way for local governments to punch above their weight and ensure the needs of remote Queensland aren't lost in the noise of the southeast. When you live over 1,000 kilometres from the nearest capital city, the challenges compound. Service withdrawal, housing shortages, workforce gaps, disaster recovery, digital isolation, youth out-migration. Each issue on its own is difficult, but the real story lies in how they interact. We've come to understand that no single organisation, government department or business can solve these problems alone. But when councils work together, when they partner with industry, community groups, training providers and higher education, something powerful happens, not just progress, alignment. So Rapid and the Western Queensland Alliance of Councils exist to foster that alignment, and when we get it right, which we do reasonably regularly, the results speak for themselves. Let me show you what convergence looks like on the ground. Let's start with people. In a region where retaining skilled workers is a daily battle, we knew we needed to build capability from within. So we created a company called Rapid Skilling, which delivers accredited, regionally tailored training and has done so for over a decade. We train where the jobs are, and that's in shearing sheds, commercial kitchens, council depots and aged care facilities. In 1 year, over 500 people participated, and for Western Queensland, that's a big number. It's not about ticking boxes, it's about creating real pathways to employment. Thank you. But we also knew that if we wanted to keep our young people local, we had to bring tertiary education closer to home, and that's why we applied for one of the country university centres, which we were successful in getting. And the model that exists in Western Queensland is unique in Australia. We have 8 hubs in 8 sites across Western Queensland. So now, no single town in our region could have sustained a university hub on its own. The population simply wasn't there. So we have those 8 hubs, and they're all working very successfully. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Country University Centre model, it's not a university as such, but it provides a suitable venue for those tertiary enrolled students who could be studying nursing, education, or they could be a doctor doing further study, and it gives them an environment that's conducive to further study, as well as having a mentor to assist them. Longreach at the moment has 50 registered tertiary students, and in total we've got about 70. So by pooling our resources and coordinating through Rapid, we created a region-wide solution, Country University Centre Rapid. As I discussed, it's a distributed model. We have shared governance, shared investment and shared impact. So the 7 mayors of Western Queensland are the 7 directors on the board. So with those study centres operating across multiple communities, each is connected to a central support system. And this is the kind of model that only works when you think regionally, when you see the strength not in individual towns acting alone, but in communities converging around a common purpose. And already it's paying off. It's giving our young people real choices and our region a stronger future. And there's nothing more encouraging than to walk into one of those university hubs and to see young people in there undertaking either an examination or further study or just doing some mentoring with the qualified teachers that are there. So CUC Rapid gives students across Central Western Queensland access to supported blended university study without leaving their communities. As mentioned, students are studying nursing, teaching, agribusiness, engineering, and they're doing it from all of those Western Queensland towns. It is a direct investment in our future workforce. Now let's talk about the scale of collaboration. The coalition of 22 councils that stretch across the western half of the state. They came together because they had so much in common. The same challenges, many of which we heard yesterday: infrastructure, housing, water, service delivery, and a shared belief that by joining forces they could shape a stronger future. So together we've built a powerful platform for joint advocacy, particularly around the housing crisis that's stifling regional growth. In many of our towns there's nowhere for new staff to live, not one spare house. And a lot of that is the changing demographics, where once we had a house with 5 people, now there'll be, mum, dad and 1 child. There's not one development block available in many of our towns. So we partnered with the Regional Australia Institute to commission some evidence-based research that didn't just identify the problem, it mapped out practical place-based responses. That work led directly to one of our biggest wins, the Queensland Government's investment in local housing action plans across regional Queensland. These are locally developed plans tailored to each community's needs, with state backing to make them real. It's a clear example of what happens when councils come together. Do the work, bring partners in early, and push with a united voice. Policy starts to shift, investment starts to follow, and housing starts to look like an opportunity, not just a barrier. Another big issue in regional Queensland, and it's not unique to there, but is water. In remote Queensland, water planning and security are critical. The WAC councils have worked together to raise the alarm about outdated allocation models, ageing infrastructure, and the urgent need for integrated water solutions. So when we speak together, we're not just louder, we're smarter, data-driven and grounded in lived experience. And increasingly, we've been heard. The role of local government in remote Queensland doesn't stop at roads, rates and rubbish. We are often the first responders, the recovery coordinators and the long-term community anchors. Nowhere is this clearer than what's happened recently, not only for us, I know that many other councils have it, but disaster recovery. And Western Queensland just had one of its biggest floods on record. So following these floods, fires and droughts, it's the councils that lead the on-ground response, coordinate the volunteers, liaise with agencies and keep the wheels turning. A powerful example is the regional advocacy to replace exclusion fencing. And for those that don't understand exclusion fencing, it's a 1.6 metre netting fence that's a barrier for dingoes to keep them out of properties that have sheep. Many of you would understand that without that, the dingoes simply kill large numbers of sheep each night. So when we had the floods, those exclusion fences, many of them were washed away, and at $15,000 a kilometre, many of those properties simply could not afford to put them back up. So we collectively, through our state member, through the Premier, through people like Brendan Moon, who's the National Emergency Management General Coordinator in Canberra, made contact with those people and spoke about the impact this would have not only on those individual properties but on regional towns, because those fences provide not only security for individual properties but the economic health of each town in Western Queensland. And I was reflecting on Alicia's conversation this morning. It's about those relationships and those partnerships. So for elected members in particular, whether they be a councillor or a mayor, they have to step out of their comfort zone and really build those relationships. So Brendan Moon, who I know personally from many years, is someone that I can ring straight away and say, Brendan, we've got a major issue out here. The Prime Minister soon followed with a visit. So what happened was Brendan Moon contacted Jenny McAllister, who's the Minister for Disasters. She flew out to Western Queensland. We were able to host her. A week later, the Prime Minister flew out. And then shortly after that, they announced $105 million shared funding between the state and the federal government to put these fences back up. All of that wouldn't happen without the advocacy that comes from local councils. So through this coordinated advocacy, we did secure that $105 million joint commitment from the Prime Minister to help rebuild what had been lost. It was a reminder that in disaster recovery, physical infrastructure and economic confidence go hand in hand, and that when we advocate together, we're far more likely to be heard. When disaster hits, convergence becomes more than a strategy. It becomes the social fabric that helps communities hold together and rebuild. And convergence doesn't just happen at the regional scale, it happens locally. And for myself, I think the Longreach Regional Council is a clear example of that. Like many remote councils, we've had to step well beyond the tradition of roads, rates and rubbish mandate. Not out of ambition, but necessity. When critical services fall through the cracks, we step in, because if we don't, as in every council area, no one else will. We've taken a direct role in supporting childcare, helping to ensure local families can access early education and that working parents can remain in the workforce. It's not core business of councils, but they do it. And in Queensland, there are 25 councils that deliver childcare services. And it's such an essential business. The first question that appointed families ask when they come out west is, what's your childcare like? And that influences the hours that they open as to whether they take up that appointment. So we were closing at 5 p.m. and the head of medical services approached me and said, Tony, he said, I can't get these young doctors to come to Longreach because they don't finish clinic until 5:30 and there's no childcare. So we had to extend our childcare service by half an hour. That doesn't come without a cost. Currently we're burning $700,000 a year at our childcare. So we've had to reframe that, and we've brought in, would you believe, a consultant to have a look at, but a consultant who has the qualities to look at the business and look at where we're burning them, that 700,000, and we're confident that they'll come up with solutions that will lessen that. It won't reduce it drastically, but it'll ease the pain slightly. We've also partnered with the Queensland Government through the Housing Investment Fund to build affordable housing for essential workers. Construction is already underway on new dwellings that will help provide much needed accommodation for the people who keep our region running. And it's a small number for the bigger cities, but currently in Longreach we have 30 new houses being built. Government houses for police, doctors, teachers, and in my time there, that's the most housing investment that I've seen ever. We are proud to be an active member of the Small Business Friendly program, and I took the opportunity before, got out of my comfort zone and assured Minister Steve Minikin that this program is really essential. We've got to keep it running, as we do have to invest in the financial counsellors that we have around the state. The Small Business Friendly program, it's not just a badge, even though we've all got one on the table, it's a commitment to reduce the red tape that the Minister spoke about, support local entrepreneurship and work with small businesses as genuine partners in regional development. This is what modern local government looks like in the bush: responsive, practical and deeply invested in the long-term viability of the communities we serve. Looking ahead, what we see emerging is a new role for regional organisations and local government, not just as deliverers of programs, but as stewards of complex systems that we heard about before. And I thought it was a great explanation, complex and complicated. Whether it's workforce, housing, disaster resilience or digital inclusion, the real task is to link the parts that too often separate or operate in isolation, to hold the threads and weave them into something that works locally. This is what RAPID and WAC are increasingly doing, convening the right people, aligning resources and driving action that adds to the momentum of the region. It's not always plain sailing, but it's the difference between fragmented effort and lasting impact. This shift from patchwork to pattern, that's the convergence we need more of. So what would I like people to take from this discussion? Firstly, the answers are already in the regions, but we do need those structures that allow them to align. invest in convergence. Secondly, regions don't need charity, at least not all the time. They do need genuine partners, ones who listen first, co-design solutions, and recognise that local leadership is not a hurdle on the way to progress, but the key to unlocking it. Thirdly, the best results come when silos dissolve. Whether it's education and training, housing and planning, or disaster recovery and economic development, we need to think across systems. And in closing, thank you, Dominic, and all your wonderful team for the opportunity to share what we're doing in Western Queensland, and thank you for being part of the convergence that will help Queensland thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Everyone's got to love the resilience and sincerity from regional Queensland, and I think we can learn a lot from the regions. Thank you, Tony. Did anyone have any questions for Tony, by the way? No? Oh, we've got a question, Tony.
Tony, thanks very much for that, and thanks for having that conversation with the Minister about small business money. That's really, really important. No, I think at the same time, you. Thank you very much. And also about your department as well. My question is, that's a really big group of councils that you have part of that program. You've obviously got some strong leadership there. How have you brought those councils together to make that work so strongly? Obviously, your leadership must be part of that.
I'll just move out here to the front. Yeah, look, I think it's like every elected councillor and mayor, they have accountability to step up. Whether they like it or not, they do have to practice good, strong leadership, particularly for the mayors. They have to do that. In the Rapid region, I was elected as chair of Rapid, and I'm on the executive of the WAC. We've managed to control WAC because it could run the risk of becoming too big. We just wanted to limit it to an advocacy group of 23 councils. So when they start to run a little bit to the left or right, we pull them back into line, because we don't want them being confused with LGAQ, which is a risk. So they're there simply to help advocate for regional issues. We meet once a year, so we're meeting in St George shortly. And then we have regular Zoom meetings, probably every couple of months, just to stay in touch on those common issues, or if there's a big ticket issue. And probably the biggest one was the housing one, where we collectively commissioned a paper, and that helped prompt some response from the state. So I suppose each of the executive are natural leaders, and they managed to steer it in the right direction. Not sure if that answers all of your question.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. Nicole McNaughton is the CEO of Food and Agribusiness Network, FAN. With over 16 years of experience in marketing and communications, Nicole has been instrumental in driving the growth and resilience of the agribusiness sector on the Sunshine Coast. Under her leadership, FAN has fostered collaboration and innovation among local producers, enhancing the region's food and agribusiness landscape. Welcome, Nicole.
Well, good morning, everyone. I won't try and, I've been told I have quite a soft voice, so I definitely need this. So, good morning. Thank you very much, Paul, very generous. So, let me just start by giving a couple of quick disclaimers and caveats. I run a small business, FAN. We have 5 employees. This week today's Thursday, yeah? So this week I had to complete 4 massive reports for federal government milestones, another milestone reporting report, having to look at an insurance for our organisation, managing some other issues. So I, like many of the businesses that you work with, am a small business and very much in the weeds, in the paddock at the moment. So I had aspired to kind of get up here and have a very polished presentation, be very TEDx-like and you know, wow the socks off you, but I've had very little time to prepare because I've been in my business. So you'll just have to kind of bear with me. My second caveat or disclaimer, there's a lot of food puns in my vernacular. You know, I work with a lot of amazing producers. I can't help myself, they come out of my mouth. And also the timing of me talking about food and actually talking about sourdough just before lunch, probably not well timed. And so if you're hungry, I do apologise. If you're celiac or gluten-free, I also do apologise because there's lots of pictures of great sourdough on here. So before I begin, maybe just a little bit about me and why I'm standing here and my journey. And for those of you in the room who know me, some of you probably haven't actually heard a little bit of my history, but while sitting here and kind of listening to the amazing speakers, and actually I'd be very remiss if I didn't actually acknowledge how amazing the speakers have been already. Can I just put the hand together? Seriously. Absolutely amazing. Songwoman Marucci said something this morning about sharing positive energy and coming together and interacting with joy and genuine passion and positive energy, and that completely resonated with me and who I am. And then obviously seeing Minister Minikin speaking, who is just, he's not your average politician, is he? Let's just say. Amazing. And then obviously listening to Alicia and perspective, and I was nodding so much that I've actually got a bit of a sore neck now, so it resonated deeply. And then Tony sharing insights from the coalface and sharing the realities of what's going on, especially for us in regional or kind of metro areas. It's so important, and thank you for giving us that genuine insight. So, sorry, a little bit remiss. But anyway, me, sitting here talking about convergence, it dawned on me that I am actually the embodiment of convergence in the sense of my background and where I've come from. A very long time ago, I had the great opportunity of working overseas and being the international brand PR manager for Heineken International. Yes, it was as exciting as it sounds, and I got to do a lot of amazing travel and drink lots of great beer and meet some interesting people. But I got the opportunity to work with a company whose team had an amazing set of values, whose company's vision was really groundbreaking and still is. And for a major company, incredibly supportive of their team. Amazing experience, and I will always have green blood. As much as I support local, I still enjoy my Heineken Zero. Fast forward a couple of years, I had the amazing opportunity of doing some work with Tourism and Events Queensland on a little campaign called Best Job in the World. So if any of you know that, it was this massive overnight viral campaign that promoted Queensland. We honestly didn't expect it to be that big. We had thought it would be a great campaign promoting Queensland and the Whitsundays, but it ended up blowing up to be this massively international, successful campaign that was featured everywhere. I was also pregnant at the time, and during the final event where we were in the Whitsundays hosting 60 film crews from around the world, including CNN and New York Times and all of these amazing things, I was that crazy pregnant woman who was telling everyone to get on the boat and get off the boat. But it was an amazing experience in the sense that that organisation had vision and had some innovative ways of working to promote Queensland. And for a state government department, pretty forward for their thinking. Fast forward a couple of years after that, I was then the comms person for Sunshine Coast Council. So I was that person who was the Facebook admin answering the questions around potholes and road closures and, you know, hearing the voice of lots of very angry keyboard warriors. I had the great opportunity of working with Paul Martins and the team as one of their communications people. And in his team, with the likes of Kelly and Carrie Ann and Mandy and many others, we had the notion of being Team GSD. Minister Minikin can't say it, but I can. We were Team Get Shit Done. We would get some amazing activity done because of the vision and the passion of the leadership of the team, but also the people involved. So I've worked in 2 levels of government. I've worked with industry, and now I'm running a small business, so I'm kind of the embodiment of convergence. Why is this important? Because throughout my career, I've been supported by visionaries, by passionate people, by values-aligned people, by people who have the energy to support local and to support small business. So, fast forward now. 6 years ago, after leaving council, sadly, I started working for an organisation called FAN, Food and Agribusiness Network. So we are based on the Sunshine Coast, but we have members throughout southeast Queensland. We have members in Moreton Bay, in Brisbane, on the Sunshine Coast, Noosa, Gympie. When we started in 2015, we were actually born out of the Sunshine Coast Council's Regional Economic Development Strategy, and again, acknowledging all of the amazing work from Paul Martins and his team back then. The vision was based on, by bringing together government and industry and other key players, a rising tide floats all boats. There's a few metaphors in my world. At that stage, the value of the industry on the Sunshine Coast was just over 400 million. Just recently, it hit $1 billion. And talking to my other council friends recently, I think the value of the region in our footprint is now closer to $3 billion, which is an extraordinarily untold fact. So we started as a small organisation with industry, a lot of the big end of town, acknowledging that in order for industry to grow, we needed to support from the ground up. We worked with Sunshine Coast Council and Noosa Council and Gympie Council and Moreton Bay Council to kind of, in those first years, build a little networking group into something more. In 2018, we received some funding from FIAL, Food Innovation Australia Limited, a state-based body that kind of supported our growth, and my employment was actually the direct result of that funding. So it kind of allowed us to put some more background, some processes, myself, into the role and do big things. Transitioning on, after COVID and after the end of FIAL funding, we had to look at our new model, go big or go home. For us, going big was actually expanding the idea of having subclusters and working and having member coordinators in each of our region. When we kind of went to this model, our friends at Moreton Bay were the first people to jump on board and say, yep, we see the value in supporting industry at the grassroots to do what you do. Noosa came on board as a partner as well, obviously with Sunshine Coast Council, and we're still working with our friends at Gympie. So through that kind of LGA partnership, we were able to have some beautiful boots on the ground, and I'm working with some amazing member coordinators who are that grassroots connection. We've also received some funding from some of our friends at state government. Advance Queensland were quite instrumental in giving us some funding in the Collaborative Regional Futures Project, which allowed us to put some action plans in place. And then from there, we were able to leverage some more funding from the Department of Primary Industries from some agritourism work. This year, and it's not on the screen, we were actually appointed as the industry partner organisation for the federal government's industry growth program, and I'm kind of spelling it out because there's also many TLAs in our world, and we know that. But what this means is that FAN, in partnership with 4 other clusters throughout Australia, is the industry partner organisation for innovative businesses looking for federal funding. What this means, though, and what we're trying to do with a lot of hard work, is be able to bring the bigger opportunities like this funding, like initiatives from the likes of AgriFutures, from CSIRO, through our partnerships with other organisations, back to our core membership base. And why is this important? And now going into the mix. So businesses, as we all know, small businesses, they are time and resource poor. How do you come up for air when you are trying to just get the cash flow going, trying to keep staff going, trying to just keep your head afloat? How do you understand what's out there? How do you understand what are the amazing initiatives that all of your councils have, that the state government department have, that even the feds have? It's through organisations like ours that we are that conduit, that we are that convergence of initiatives. And we do this because at the heart of what we do, and this is our why, is our members, and they are those small businesses. Fun fact, 98% of the Australian food and beverage manufacturing industry is actually made up of SMEs, and they're mostly the SMEs. So this is a critical part of our infrastructure, food and beverage. 98% of them are actually small businesses. So again, how do you come up for air? We do this, and you know, the idea of being culture is everything in the sourdough expression is because it is. We exist for our members. We see on a day-to-day basis the passion and the resilience and the hard work that they put in. I like to say that I have Queensland's best stock pantry. So we work with 400 members, 500 members across southeast Queensland. So from people like Sean from Montville Coffee being one of Australia's first certified free trade coffee businesses. The guys from Lacey Hill, although I don't drink gin anymore, amazingly passionate local business doing some great things in Moreton Bay. I do have in my pantry Little White Goat's cheese, Australia's first freeze-dried feta. It's really amazing. From the likes of Karen Lindsay in Moreton Bay. And then Heads of Noosa. They make the best Hop Valley seltzer water, which is so incredibly tasty. I have this in my pantry because it's amazing food and product, but also I get to hear the stories behind the businesses that run these. And we, as an organisation, have the great privilege of bringing together these businesses with support and resource and opportunities that is provided by all of you. So the next thing in making a really great sourdough, who's in the mix? So FAN, we identify as a cluster model. Kind of during COVID, saying that you're a cluster model was not a really good look, but that's who we are. So a cluster model is based on 3, probably 4 helices. We are industry. As I said, we have 500 members across the whole food value chain. We work very closely with all 3 levels of government, and I really need to acknowledge my other colleagues in the room here. So Vicky from Noosa Council, Tim and Tyler from Sunshine Coast Council. There you go, guys. Andrew from Gympie, and Vicky and Christine and Paul from Moreton Bay. We work with these guys and have done so for the past 10 years to do what we do. We also work with, as I said before, state and federal, and increasingly working with a lot of our friends in the research R&D world. So the likes of CSIRO, the likes of the Food and Beverage Accelerator, who have lots of amazing programs that are very not well understood by small business. So we're able to, again, bring those opportunities back to our small members and our small businesses great example was just this week, and Tyler, you were at it, we had an ESG seminar specifically for food and beverage businesses hosted by Faber, which is a massive big institution out at UQ. It was really well attended, and we're going to do some more. But those opportunities are really hard to actually understand when you're a small business. We also couldn't do it without the support of key stakeholders. In this picture here is one of our main supporters, SRJ Walker Wayland, who are our accounting partner, but more importantly, passionate advocates of local and passionate advocates of us. So they're our tribe, in a sense. We exist with funding from all of these groups, and we exist to be able to kind of work together to, again, support our local members. And the other image there, my team with some of the others at the Buy Local Day launch last week. So, continuing the sourdough collaboration theme, mixing it all together. This is the really important part. And for anyone who's playing conference word bingo, collaboration, there it is again. So, collaboration, that's what we do. That's in our DNA. I won't lie, collaboration is hard. It's draining, it's time consuming, and if you're anything like me, a passionate people person, it can be really tiring at the end of the day. But it's so worthwhile. It's so worth it when you see that by collaborating, and when I say collaborating, not consultation, but genuine collaboration, great things happen. So for us, collaboration, really tangible ways of collaboration, initiatives like our Meet the Makers event, and I'll share some more information about that soon. Events like our Grow National program, which is an accelerator program for food and beverage businesses. Events like we had recently for Queensland Small Business Month, Meet the Female Makers, where we had a diverse range of amazing women in the room talking about cash flow. We weren't able to do any of these initiatives without genuine support from other groups, other industries, other government departments, and more importantly, with the collaboration of our members. So, fermentation. It's a bit of a metaphor, so thanks for going with me. You have to let it rise as well. And I think someone said to me recently, wow, Fan, an overnight 10-year success. And actually, I'd just like to point out that it was our 10th birthday last week. So it's been a long journey. And it's been a long journey and a powerful journey because over time, our values have coalesced, our purpose and our meaning, and more importantly, the proof that collaboration and a values-based approach to economic development is really worthwhile comes through. So again, initiatives like our Grow National program, which has been supported by 3 of our local government partners, last year supported by Advance Queensland. Through that program and through those partnerships, we've been able to take all of these amazing businesses to big events like Fine Foods in Melbourne. And these businesses were able to get some national distribution opportunities, which is just next level and so meaningful for small business. So once it's all risen and you're in the mix, it's letting it bake, it's scoring it. And in this sense, it's really about telling the stories and celebrating and kind of sharing the outcome of all of that amazing work that's gone into the lead up to it. And I think this is something that we all as a collective working with small businesses have the responsibility to do. There's been such a massive narrative recently around how hard it is to do business for every small business. There's so much doom and gloom talk about the cost of doing business, labour and distribution and freight and input supplies, and this negative narrative is absolutely true, but we can't get sucked down into that. I genuinely believe that we have to really celebrate the success stories of our small businesses and shine a light on those businesses who are passionate, who are resilient, who make amazing things and do the hard work, and actually celebrate that proudly and tell those stories. We have so many amazing stories in our region, in our membership network. My favourite one that I like to say is that, you know, the Sunshine Coast is actually prawns and pineapples plus pavlova. So, Alicia, this is really controversial, but the Sunshine Coast is actually the home of pavlova. Yes, I know, very controversial saying that to a Kiwi, but I say that because genuinely, the Sunshine Coast is home to Country Chef, which makes more pavlovas in the Southern Hemisphere and arguably anywhere in the world. Who knew that? We need to celebrate that. So yes, we are the home of pavlovas. But we're also the home of amazing cheese, award-winning cheese, Woombye cheese, amazing, I love cheese. Noosa Black Garlic, which is again award-winning, winning awards at Fine Foods, left, right and centre. As I said before, Australia's first freeze-dried goat's cheese feta from Little White Goat's Cheese. We have so many amazing stories of passionate resilience and innovation in our network and in your ecosystem. So let's share it. And really, what we're sharing is the fact that buying local and supporting local, we're investing in people. You guys know this. Absolutely. I'm not telling you how to suck eggs. We all are here because we believe in small business. We believe in the power of bringing people together and collaborating and actually supporting them because they need it, but also the value of what we do sometimes can be thankless. And yeah, and having worked on the other side at council, it's hard, but genuinely what we do does create impact, and we've got to take the wins where we can. So I would encourage you all to, you know, support local, buy local, but tell that story of your local product, of your local company, of your local business who's doing great things. And I'm absolutely convinced that all of you do that. One thing I would probably also like to reconfirm is that you've got to find your tribe. What we do is, as I said, sometimes really thankless. And yes, there is lots of keyboard warriors out there who kind of bash what we do. But we do it and we're all passionate about what we do because we can see the impact. So find your tribe. Find the people that support you. Find the people that get what you do and reach out to each other. So, great partnerships, and I must finish up really soon, so I'll finish up really soon. They rise when nurtured. Work together with your other councils, work together with industry groups like ours. Find your tribe, find the people that get the value of what we do, that get the value of place-based economic development, because we know that when it works, it's actually so impactful, and like, you know, a good loaf of sourdough, it's actually really enjoyable. So, open invitation here. Come and try for yourself. I mentioned our event, Meet the Makers, which is a trade show event for producers throughout Queensland. Come and visit us on the 25th of July. If you've got any businesses who you think would like to be connected, send them our way, because it's actually what we're doing here is working together to celebrate and show the amazing businesses that we have. So, thank you very much. I'm hoping that I haven't made you too hungry, and over to you.
Thanks, Nicole. I will move it along. Nicole's still going to be around if there's any questions that you have for Nicole, and I'll introduce the next speaker. for the session before lunch. Now we've been talking about sourdough. So David Enright, founder of Creative Communities International, is a master at turning ordinary spaces into vibrant places. With a knack for igniting creativity, he helps communities unlock their collaborative genius to transform their surroundings. David believes true change isn't about big budgets, it's about bringing people together, sparking ideas and making magic happen through collaboration. Welcome, David.
All right. Can we get you all to stand up? Yes. Yes. And I want you to find a partner. Only for the next 2 minutes. Not for life, okay? Find yourself a bit of space and stand opposite your partner and touch right toe to right toe across the gap and join right hand to right hand. Is this thing on? Yeah. Now we're going to play a little game. It's important you listen to the name of the game. It's called Win as Much as You Possibly Can. And you've got about 40 seconds to win as many as you can. And you're asking, how do I win a point? Well, you're going to win a point every time you get your partner's hand to touch your hip. All right? Not yet. I'm going to give you the signal. What's the name of the game? Win as much as you can. All right. So are we ready? On your mark, get set, go. Okay, we can stop. Who didn't win any at all? Who only won 2 or 3? Who won about 50? All right, they're the smart ones in the room. Come up the front and demonstrate for us how you won 50.
Can we go that way?
You can go that way, yeah.
We get a bit
On your way, go. All right, thank you. So when I'm training retailers, we often do this exercise and I say, this is the hardest lesson I'm going to have to teach you as retailers. You will win more by cooperating than you will by competing. Now let me make it clear that what I'm talking about today when talking about small business is about small businesses in town centres and on main streets. I'm not talking about the broad range. So we work in town centres. One of our programs is called the 7-Day Makeover. We make over whole town centres in 7 days, and that includes all the community consultation using volunteers. You interested? Yeah. All right. So what I want to focus in on is how do we get town centres like this back operating again with online shopping, big box stores, etc. How do we make it work? Now, can I just ask first up, how many people in the room here live in a town or work in a town where you would love to see your town centre or your main street rejuvenated? Almost everybody in the room. All right. Now let me ask you about what is the perceived solution to revitalising your town centre? What are the retailers, what are the community coming to you saying, we need X in order to rejuvenate our town centre. So how many people is it we need more parking? All right. How many of you is we need a new toilet block? Yep. How many is it we need a street remodelling? We need to remodel the street. Okay. How many is it we need a giant mural? Now let me say very clearly that none of these things will bring your town centre or your main street to life. Don't piss your money up against the wall, to be blunt. In fact, this street here has fantastic paving if you look carefully. Repaving your streets is not going to bring, or getting nice furniture is not going to bring your street back to life. Now I'm going to share 3 secrets of how you bring a town centre or a main street to life. And we're going to start by doing a little thought experiment. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're on a road trip somewhere in outback Queensland, and you've been driving for 5 hours, you're busting to go to the loo. And you pull into this little town that looks like all the other towns you've been through. Doesn't look any different on the surface to any of these other towns. And you pull into the first cafe and you race in and you say to the barista, "Can you tell me where the closest public toilet is?" And the barista says, "Oh, just use ours, it's just out the back." So you go out the back and the first thing you notice is there's no "for customer only" sign on the door. Instead, there's a big sign saying, "Welcome." And you go, "Oh my God." You open the door and you go in and there's handmade soap, fresh flowers, funky wallpaper, chandelier hanging from the ceiling. And so you quickly take some photos. You're going to post on social media. You come back to the barista and you say, "Wow, that's really, really impressive." And the barista says, "Oh, that's nothing. There's 10 other businesses in town that have done the same thing to their toilet, and some of theirs are even funkier than ours. Here's a little map that shows you where all the funky toilets are in town." So you're intrigued. You sit down, you order a coffee and cake, you study the little map, and you decide you're going to go and check out some of these other toilets. Now, you only intended to stay in this town for a toilet break, but now 4 hours later you leave town, your wallet's a lot lighter, and you even have a t-shirt that says, "I did the funky toilet tour." What this is illustrating is the competitive advantage that a main street or a shopping town centre has is now what is called the experience economy. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with my own slides. Town centres, main streets will never compete with online shopping, mega malls, etc. on the basis of the product. They will only compete if the town centre is offering an experience that you can't get at any of these other shopping locations. Now, secret number 2, which is connected to this, is about bringing back the civic life and economic life of the town centre. Now, if we go back far enough in history, our town centres, the civic life, social life and economic life were all intertwined together. So if you go to Europe now, for example, and you see the evening promenade is supporting businesses, but the businesses are supporting the promenade. So the social and cultural life are all intertwined. Now, what has happened over time is that we have split that off and we say to the businesses, your job is to look after the economic life. It is council's job to look after civic and social life. We've taken that role away from businesses. There's a wonderful story in Jane Jacobs' book about a retailer in New York that had a drawer full of keys. And those keys were the keys of all of the apartments in that particular district. Anybody that wanted renovations on their apartment didn't have to stay home. They would say, go to the butcher, and the butcher has my key. This was the time when economic, social, and cultural life were all connected. We've torn that apart, and now we have retailers struggling, thinking their only job is about how do I sell this product, as opposed to how do I promote a fantastic civic, social life in my town centre. So what has happened as a result of this, and many of you will resonate with this, is that our town centres have become what I call essentials-only shopping strips. That is, people only go there to buy the chops, get back in their car and drive out again. Now, if I had a lot of time to talk to you, I would say that one of the top placemaking secrets that we teach people is we have to keep people in your public spaces 2 or 3 times longer than what they are currently there. This is the number one placemaking secret, is density of human activity. I don't need to get one additional person visiting your town centre. I can make it feel twice as vibrant just by getting everybody to stay twice as long. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is in an essentials-only shopping street, you are getting absolutely no value out of your visitors because they're only there for 5 seconds while they're dashing from the car to go to the butcher or whatever it is. The other interesting thing about that is you need many, many more times car parks in an essential-only shopping strip because everybody wants to drive from the butcher to the newsagent. Whereas in the old days, people would park the car once and then move between all of those destinations, spend a lot of time in the street. So this demand for extra car parking is actually driven by the decline of our shopping streets, and providing that additional parking actually rips the heart out of our town centres. So restoring the social and civic functions of our town centres is absolutely key to their revitalisation. Now, I realised when I was sitting over there that there's a whole bunch of slides I didn't put in the show that I should have, so I will diverge for a moment. Again, over time, what has happened is our towns and villages were built on what I call the citizen model. That is, the core idea of a settlement is that everybody puts their gifts and talents into the pool and everybody gets to take more out than what they put in. It's the magic pudding of settlements. Now, what has happened over time is that particularly council organisations have moved to the customer model, which is you pay your rates and taxes and we will deliver for you what you used to do for yourself. And it's sending our councils broke. I can tell you stories, I wish I had more time, but I can tell you a story in Christchurch where the council was getting ready to spend $250,000 putting speed bumps in a street, and when I was a consultant, when I talked to the community, I discovered that the reason the community had been lobbying council to spend $250,000 was that there were boy racers doing donuts in the street at 2 o'clock in the morning. And when I asked the community, how many of these boy racers are there, an elderly gentleman jumped up and said, 5, and I can tell you where every single one of them lives. And I said, has anybody been to knock on their door and ask them what we have to do to get them to behave themselves? I think they'll do it for less than $50,000. That's the customer model. Now, I will divert for a moment. There's a guy in Auckland that had the same problem. He went down at midnight in his pyjamas, stood in the middle of the street, went stop. When the boy racers got out of their cars, he said, when I was your age, I also had a love affair with my car. I love speed. He said, but now that I'm 50, I can afford better toys than you can afford. I have a 4-seater jet ski anchored in the bay. Which of you boys want to drive my jet ski tomorrow? He became the town troubleshooter for boy races. And it didn't cost the council any money. That's the citizen model. Now, we will never get our retailers to establish a civic heart in our town centres while ever council deals with them as if they were customers of council and doesn't design a process that turns them back into citizens where we say, it's your responsibility to bring the street to life, not ours as council. And here are the tools to be able to do it. And we've invented, look, we can't make over a town centre in 7 days without getting past all of the red tape, regulations, etc. We've invented whole systems for doing that, and that's how we work with retailers. When we're working with retailers, we work on a permissions approach rather than a regulatory approach. And come and talk to me afterwards. I don't have time to go into that. All right, let's move on. Secret number 3, which I've just started to touch on, is the need to educate your retailers. Now, this guy might be a fantastic barber, I don't know. Now, I've been working with retailers and town centres for over 30 years, and the first place I ever worked, it absolutely blew my mind. I could not work out how retailers thought, how their brains worked. And what I discovered is that most small businesses are started by a technician, that is somebody that is very good at making a product, giving travel advice, making dresses, cakes, whatever. And because they're a technician, their whole mental focus psychologically is, if I've got a great product, I've got a great business. And they do not understand the complexities around, if I'm in that street that I've started showing you, it doesn't matter how good my product is. If I've got empty shops, 3 either side of me, I'm going broke, right? So they don't understand these other factors. And so one of the things that we focus very strongly on now is educating your retailers and giving them core knowledge. The title of my talk was 9 hacks. I'm only going to give you 2 out of that little booklet. Now, the first one is, so what we explain to retailers is that for a new customer to come into your shop for the very first time, there's a whole lot of psychological barriers that that person has to overcome. Right. Who hates mixing with other people? Good. All of us extroverts hate mixing. That's the psychological barrier. I've got to push somebody's door open, go in, start a conversation with them about what's your product, what's your prices, etc. We call that friction, right? That's the friction that stops a new customer engaging with your business. So the 9 hacks are around how do we reduce friction, and how do we then turn that person into a raving fan once they're inside your shop? Now, the first barrier, the first friction is, in a shop like this, where is the front door? What are we saying to our potential customer if they can't instantly tell where the front door is? Keep walking, stay away. Look, it doesn't matter how vibrant we make a street, if a business doesn't understand this first principle of I've got to make them feel welcome, So here's an example of a shop that is making their entry, and you can work it out for yourself. You can see all the ways, even the red stripes on the door. One of the interesting things about this is, look at the size of the signs. Their whole focus is, I want to make you feel welcome, I want to shout at you and tell you what I sell. One of the principles we teach retailers is, the more upmarket your store and the more expensive your items, the smaller your signs will be. And we'll move on to number 2. Hack number 5, which is around show, don't tell. So we have a golden rule. If somebody who can't read English can't tell what you sell, you fail to communicate the nature of your business. And we get businesses to do a thought experiment, which is, if council banned all A-frames and all signage, how would I communicate the nature of my business? Now, I was doing this exercise in Taree, and an accountant said to me, what would I put outside my shop if I can't have an A-frame with world's best accountant on it? And I said, what could he put outside of his shop? Well, I said a giant abacus. I came back in 6 months' time. He said, it's the best advertising I've ever done. If anybody in town says, do you know a good accountant? And not only that, everybody walking past has to stop and play with them. Do you know the more human activity you have going on outside your shop, the more product you'll sell? Right? This ticks so many boxes. It's also about a linger node, so it's keeping people in town longer than what they would have if that wasn't there. And people won't spend that amount of time with an A-frame, I can guarantee you. Oops, I've pressed the wrong button. When you start thinking about it, you can make your town so much more interesting. And I'm not joking. I think council should be banning A-frames and excessive signage. This is about how do you position your town that it's a more upmarket place. Again, I don't have time to discuss it, but there's this whole stuff about nobody knows what the value of anything is. It's about what you project the value of something is that is important. All right, I think I've got to... so in the other room there, we've got a little booklet here about the 3 ways that we can help you move in this direction. If we run out of copies, take my card, send me an email, and I'll send you an electronic version of it. And I was going to summarise, but no. It's over to you. All right. So the 3 takeaways that I'm supposed to give you. It's not about the streetscape. It's not about the parking. It's not about the giant mural. It's about the experience that people are going to have in your town centre, and that requires no money. That just requires imagination. Second one is to restore the civic and social functions of the town centre, and to do that you've got to stop relating to your retailers and your public as customers and start relating to them as citizens, and stop solving the problems for them. Controversial point, I'm an advocate for banning community consultation. I'll give you a whole lot of reasons if anybody wants to add. Because community consultation is part of the customer model. It's going, we've decided to give you a toaster, what colour would you like it? Okay? Do you want, I've written a whole article, 5 reasons to ban community consultation. Just go on LinkedIn and you can find it. You'll find the 5 reasons. Well, I'm serious. Our model is informed community doing. Number one, the community needs information. If the community knew how to solve the problem, they would have done it already. It's always a lack of information. Community consultation, when you go to the community and say, what do you need to revitalise your town centre? We saw it. You'll get more parking, etc., right? Nobody's got the imagination to go, let's do a funky toilet tour, right? My third takeaway was that retailers are great technicians, but they need to be educated in all of the other factors that are going to determine the success of their business, including doing the little exercise we did at the start, which is teaching that it's about collaboration, not competition.
Thanks, David. Well done. It's lunchtime now. I know a lot of you are going to have a lot of some questions for David. He has a table next door. Please go and visit David and ask any questions you may have. Can I just remind everyone to encourage you all to visit the media wall and take a picture and put a testimonial and plug the event. And if we can be back here by about 1:20, is that okay? Thanks, everyone. Thank you. And another round of applause for David as well. And the speakers, please. Thank you. Get rid of these.
We got things to say. No one ever said it would be to the ground, will you hold me? Will you serenade me with the song you used to play? Till the night turns into day, will you hold me?